Hey everyone, thanks for joining tonight. We're going to get started in just one moment. All right, hello everyone. Thank you for joining tonight, and welcome to our first Team Dean's List Award call of the season. My name is Erin Fadden. I'm a project manager with First Tech Challenge, and part of what I do at First is I actually manage the Dean's List Award for the First Tech Challenge program. So today, this call is really put together for teams and coaches, students to call in to ask questions about the Dean's List Award, about eligibility, anything you need to know about the nomination process or even the interview process. I know we're really early in the season, but it's good to know these things going into it, and getting a head start and getting the information early. So thank you for joining and welcome. I do have a couple of slides I just want to run through really quickly. I understand that some might know what the Dean's List is, but not everyone does. So I just wanted to give a really quick introduction of what the Dean's List is, the eligibility, who can nominate, etc. And then what I like to do is just open it up to everyone here to ask questions. So there's actually, there should be on the top of your screen a Q&A button where you can click that and then you can just type in your question and ask it. I will read it out loud to the rest of the group, and then I will answer that question for you all. So we will go ahead and get started. So first of all, I just want to let everyone know that Dean's List, we had to push it a little bit, so it will open next week on the 8th. We do have some guides on our website now. Those are actually from last season. The information is widely the same. It really just needs to be updated for this season with logos, themes, all that fun stuff. But really not many changes at all to those guides. So they're still usable. We hope to have the guides up and available for the season once the nominations do open on the 8th. So more to come on that. And so this is the criteria. As I mentioned, this actually has not changed from past seasons, or at least from last season. So this is all listed in the guide, but these are some of the things that you're going to be looking at when you're, especially for coaches, when you're thinking about who to nominate. But I know that in some cases, in some regions, that might be something that the team considers, or even in some circumstances that the students try to, self-identify as, I do fit this criteria. So just wanted to share, the criteria is here. It's the same. Again, you can find it in the nomination guides. And I think one important thing to note about the nomination guides is that there are two. There is one for US, so it's technically North America, so US, Mexico, and Canada. And then there's a separate one for international. There's a couple different steps that the international folks will have to follow just for the nomination process itself. So actually submitting the nomination, but everything else is the same. And so who is eligible? So teams for North America, again, including Canada and Mexico, is 10th and 11th grade students are eligible for the award. That changes a little bit for international. So I know that a lot of international countries don't use grade level. So this award is intended for students who are 2 to 3 years away from entering college or university. And so who can nominate? So a lead coach 1 or 2 automatically has the eligibility to nominate a student that fits within the criteria, that fits within the eligibility guidelines. We do have an option for a Dean's List Award submitter. And so this allows a mentor on the team to be identified as someone who is going to be submitting for a Dean's List Award nomination and nominating a student. We will have a few changes to this process, and this is part of why those guides need to be updated. Hopefully this will be a little bit easier this year, but we are making some changes on how those people are identified. And so more to come on that. We are actually still getting those changes in place as we speak. So we don't have those updates just yet, which is part of the reason why we don't have the guides yet. So appreciate your patience on that. And that's really all I have for you all. I do want to just open it up and take your questions. So really, all of these calls are set up in a way that, we want to hear from you, and we want to know what questions that you have, about the award, about the process in general. So please feel free to, I think you can raise your hand. That's also on the top bar of your chat, and you should be able to raise your hand. I can unmute you. And the other option is that you can type your question into the Q&A. So if I can think of anything else that I could talk about, I will let you know, and try to hopefully fill the time. But it looks like we might have a question. Sorry. Oh, someone asked me to go back to the previous slide. I'm wondering which one that was. I can go back to any slide you would like. Here's eligibility. And as I mentioned, this is all of this you can find in the guide. It's a copy and paste. This right here is in all of the guides, but this is specific, as I mentioned, to international. And I don't have a response yet, but here's the Dean's List Award criteria. So someone asked, how do I find the submission date for our nominations? So, and they put their region in. So that's a really great question. Every region will enter a Dean's List only event. And so what that is they'll enter one event. It will say either Dean's List interview only or Dean's List interview only remote for your event. Whatever that's dated for. So for example, if that event is dated in January, that will actually make your nomination deadline the 15th of the month prior. Hang on one second. I'm actually going to pull some other info for you real quick. So this is going to be the old guide, but I just wanted to make sure I could grab this for you so you could see. Actually, you know what? I'm going to pull up the new one. Because why not? Okay. So you'll need to look for that Dean's List interview only event type. And so as I mentioned, like regardless of what date that is, if it's dated in January, then it would be listed. The deadline would be the 15th of the month prior. So regardless of the date in January. And the one way that you can actually find your events, there's a couple different ways you can do that. So this is the First Inspires website. And so we have the option here. If you select First Tech Challenge and you select events and you select find an event, and you'll have to select event here. You can actually search specifically for First Tech Challenge events, and you'll be able to even drill down further. You can put in a wider date range and locate your Dean's List events here. And the other way that you can do that is from our game and season page. Oh, bananas. Okay, here we go. So this page here, so this is the link that I clicked on, First Tech Challenge official event results, but this also lists all of the events in a region. So this is also a way that you'd be able to find that. And it looks like I have a hand up. Melissa, and I apologize, this is a new platform. I'm not used to using Teams for this setting, so I'm going to try my best to unmute you. So now you'll just have to unmute yourself. There we go.
Hi. Okay, I have a crying toddler, so I'll make this very quick. My
Oh, yeah.
feature is not working, or I would have typed it. I believe you're saying is this is an award for just high school students. I'm a Michigan coach, and we're FTC up to middle school, so this is not for us, right?
Correct. Yes. With Michigan, it's different. Yes.
And I'll see you tomorrow night for gameplay.
Okay. Thanks, Melissa. 1 second. I'm just looking through to see if there are any more hands. So there's a question here. How is commitment to first judged? Before I answer this, I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen again. Actually, I'll just throw this over here because that is just easier. Okay. So the question is about the first criteria here, demonstrated leadership and commitment to first core values. And so the question is, how is commitment to first judged? Are kids who only have access to an FTC team disadvantaged if they aren't part of FTC? Is there a judging rubric that is available? What's the best way to prepare for the interview? And are there sample questions? Okay. So these are criteria. So we don't have a rubric necessarily that are used to judge these. They're subjective in a way that so what we're really looking for when we talk about demonstrated leadership and commitment to first values is that what the Dean's List Award is really about is we're looking for one of the top goals is to determine the top students who are going to be future leaders and ambassadors for FIRST, and to continue post high school to spread the word of FIRST and to be ambassadors. And so there are multiple ways that you can do that, and I guess I'm having a hard time finding an example off the top of my head, and so if I think of one, I'll let you know. But there are so many different ways that students can do that, from spreading the word through their community, by recruiting other teams, by recruiting other team members, by there's so many different ways that can be done. So it's hard to pinpoint that. But the other part I want to address is, our kids who only have access to an FTC team disadvantaged if they aren't part of FTC. So I guess I'm a little confused at how that's worded. This is an FTC specific award, so students do need to be a part of FTC and on an FTC team in order to be nominated for the award. And what is the best way to prepare for the interview? I'm going to grab this. So we have an appendix in the guide. This might look a little bit different when we release the new guides next week, but the information will be the same. Once a student is nominated and the deadline closes, every student that is nominated is notified of their nomination. So not only do they get an email, as long as we have their email on file, the lead coach 1, lead coach 2 student will get the email if their email is on file, and so will a parent if their email is on file. And that email includes the nomination essay. And so one of the first steps in preparing for the interview, which is really important, is for the student to understand what is written in the essay. Because not only are the judges reading that essay first, and that's how they're preparing to walk into that interview. So knowing what's there is going to be super, super helpful in order for a student to prepare. But it also gives the student an opportunity to say, hey, you know what? I've also done XYZ really amazing things. And I want to make sure that I'm prepared to discuss those things in the interview with the judges. So I think that's huge important to make sure that the students are understand what is written in the essay and being prepared to bring any additional information that they think will help, especially even aligning that with the criteria. It doesn't necessarily need to be aligned with the criteria. This is a first award. It's first tech challenge. There's also a separate nomination process for first robotics competition, and they're very much aligned. But definitely focusing on, I'd say, majority of what the student has accomplished in first, and that doesn't need to be. So, like for example, we see a lot of students now who have started in first LEGO League Junior and are now in first tech challenge. I mean, talking about that first journey is fantastic, right? And I think too, if there are other ways that the student has been active in the community that might not be about first, but align with the core values of first, those are also really important things that you can bring up as well. And so here are also within that appendix some of the example questions that a student might be asked. I will say that this is very similar to a job interview, right? It's, and I don't want to make it sound that serious, right? But I think the preparation is still very much kind of the same. And just like, there's going to be some pretty standard questions that you're asked, but also bringing to the table your best foot, right? All right, let's see. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just going through some of the questions real quick. As I mentioned, it's a new platform for me, so. Okay. All right, so am I required to create a letter of recommendation, or is it simply nominating a student and they complete the essay on their own? So the idea here is that the student isn't actually writing their essay. This is an essay that is written by the mentor, the lead coach 1, lead coach 2. That is not to say that it explicitly has to be written by those people. One of the things that, let me look through here. So the nomination essay, it's a 4,000 character essay, and there are actually prompts. Let's see. I'm going to show this to you really quickly. Okay. So once you're in that nomination, in the dashboard to create the nomination, so each of these boxes has 800 characters to equal up the 4,000 character essay. And so there are prompts with each box. And these prompts are written with the criteria specifically in mind in order to help prompt whoever's writing the essay to make sure that they're doing the best possible to align with the criteria. And so, sorry, I tangented a little bit, but going back to who writes the essay. So again, it has to be submitted by lead coach 1, lead coach 2, or Dean's List Award submitter. A mentor could write it and provide that to the lead coach 1 to put through the nomination. We do ask that the entire team, if possible, could participate in that and to kind of verify the accuracy of that is a really a big nice to have, but we're not obviously checking those. But yeah, so a mentor, a coach, either way. Someone asked, is the interview for middle schoolers from FTC teams too? The answer is no. This is only for 10th and 11th grade students. So I know we just had that question from Michigan, but no, so this is only for 10th and 11th grade. Looks like Nicole, you have your hand up. Give me 1 sec. Let me unmute you. And then you'll just need to unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi.
So I have this is kind of like a joint question. So what is the interview process like? What is it like? Like, how does it work in specifics, and who interviews us, and does it change based off of like states and then worlds?
So first, let me start by saying that every student in First Tech Challenge gets one interview. So you will get interviewed any student that is nominated will get an interview. When you get nominated, you become a Dean's List Awards semi-finalist. And then after that interview, each region, in most cases with FTC, that's like a state or a country. There are certain states that are split up into a couple different regions, but each region has anywhere between 2 to 4 spots that they choose their finalist. And then from the finalist pool, those go to our World Championship judges. There's no additional interview. They just look at the original essay, any notes that were typed up from the interview to help support the essay. And they look at all of those and they make the decision on the 10 winners for First Tech Challenge. As far as the interview is concerned, so in most cases in First Tech Challenge, I think in probably 90% of the cases, we have gone to a remote system versus an event interview. So we understood that at an event, you're already really, really busy with robot inspections and judging and matches. And it's a really hectic day. So we have gone to remote judging. And so what that means is that once you receive an email that you've been nominated, you will then be contacted by a volunteer within that region. It could be your local program delivery partner. It could be a Dean's List coordinator in that region. It does vary a little bit region to region. But what will happen is that you'll have a panel interview, and it should be just 2 Dean's List interview volunteers who are going to be interviewing you. And one thing that I will say is that we do require for those remote interviews. So we always require at least 2 adults in the room from the interview perspective, and then we require an adult in the room on the other side as just like a silent observer, just for safety and youth protection purposes. But that's pretty much the format. Did I answer your question? Did you have any more questions?
I think that's it so far. I'm sure I'll come up with some other questions, but
Sure.
by the way, just to let you know, the Q&A section, it's not working for me. It's also not working for one of my teammates.
Oh, okay.
So I just want to let you know in case
Okay.
other people are having that issue.
Okay, yeah. And like I said, people can raise their hands too, and I can just unmute you. Great. Someone asked if a student can win the award even if the team does not compete at the national or world level. So what's really cool is that if a student is selected as a finalist within the region, we actually invite all of the finalists to the World Championship because we have a Dean's List celebration there. And that's where we announce the winners. And so one, that means that you'll get an invite as a finalist. Again, this is the second level. You would get invited if you are selected as a finalist to the World Championship, to this luncheon that we do. And so you don't have to have your team participating there in order to come to the championship. And that's pretty true anyway, but there is a really cool celebration that we do for Dean's List specifically. So no, your team does not need to qualify. And the other thing too is that you don't need to be present at championship in order to win the award. So just thought I'd mention that. Nicole, do you have your hand up again? Or
I do.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
So for the judges at the World Championship level, do they see either like pictures or names of the nominees?
They do not see pictures of the students. They will see the name of the student. They'll see some demographic information, like where you're from, what your team member is, that sort of a thing. But we do not provide photos to that group. I think we used to have that as part of the nomination process, but that was, we no longer do that. So it's just that nomination with your name, grade, essay, all that stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. That's to recap. The other thing too, so I kind of mentioned this, but I think I can elaborate a little bit further, and I think I have something here. We do have a section here about FIRST Robotics Competition and FIRST Tech Challenge. So both programs do have the Dean's List Award. It's the same criteria. It is the nomination process, as far as the steps to submit the nomination essay, are very much the same. With FIRST Robotics Competition, they do have a different interview structure. I can't go into it because I don't understand it 100%, and I might not say things correctly. But what I do, the point of calling this out is that students who are in both FIRST Robotics Competition and FIRST Tech Challenge are eligible to be nominated in both. I think that's been a common misconception, so I think it's worth just mentioning. Someone asked, what are the guardrails against the conflict of interest in the interview panelists? I think it's very similar to the way that we do judging. So panels are created ahead of time, and generally what will have to happen, especially because these are being done remote, panels are created and time slots are filled. And so at that point, whoever is coordinating within that region is responsible for just, checking and making sure that there ideally aren't any conflicts, and scheduling as appropriate. And that's on a regional level. What else? Just keeping an eye to see if I have any other hands or if I have any other questions. Great question so far. Someone asks, if your state has multiple regions, is there additional round of interviews? And the answer is no. I'll give, let's say California as an example. We have, California is a large state, and it is split into 3 different regions. Actually, and this is probably important to note too, is that with this award, you can only apply within your own region. And that's zip code based, right? So if you're in the Los Angeles region of California, you can only apply for the Dean's List Award in the LA region. So you can't skip from LA to the San Diego region, right? So you're going to funnel up through your own region when it comes to Dean's List. So there will be only one interview within that region. What other questions? Here's the problem, is that I've been doing this for a long time. So I have all the knowledge in here. And so, like, ask me anything. There's no such thing as a stupid question. It's all in here. And I'm like, oh yeah, about that. And we'll include this too. I think I kind of just like jumped over this to show you the nomination steps, but in the guide, there's step-by-step instructions on every single thing you need to do. And so as I was mentioning, and just zooming in right here. So like when you're nominating, when I was mentioning right now how you can only apply in your own region, the system knows where you are, right? And it will gray this out to exactly where your region is, and then you just select your region to be judged at here. But everything that you need is all listed here to get through the system. Nicole, go ahead if you want to unmute yourself.
Hello again. So as far as the essays go, say that you submit the essay or the mentor submits the essay, but then there's stuff that we do after the essay has been submitted.
Yep.
Would we be able to have, I guess, like an opportunity to like mention those things that we did, even if they're not in the essay?
Absolutely.
And you said that there was a they write down notes, and so I mean, I'm sure there's no guarantee that they would write it, but like I guess they can write stuff like that, right?
Definitely. I want to show you something real quick. So this is really cool, just in general, if you ever want to read about any First Tech Challenge volunteer role. But specifically what we're talking about right now is the Dean's List Interviewer Manual. So that volunteer manual is listed on our website for anyone to read. But they have, let's see. This is their instructions, but so they have a whole separate area that they're required to fill out after the interview takes place. And so they are asked, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so you can kind of see what that looks like. Again, this isn't a secret, so it's out on our public website. But what they're looking for, so we're asking them not to repeat what's in the nomination essay, right? But is there any additional information that they learned that they would like the judges to know, right? And so we just kind of give some examples. And so they have a box here that they can fill that in. And then any additional information that they learned that is not included in the written essay. So absolutely 100%. If your nomination essay goes in and you've done a whole bunch of things after that, please write all that down and make sure to bring those up in the interview, because there's space for that. And we require that volunteer notes that in the system. And then here's just, kind of a rating scale here, but just so you can kind of understand a little bit of that back end of how that works. Yep, go ahead.
So are we judged based off of our expertise of building the robot, or just either building it, coding? Because for like at least my situation, we don't have a lot of resources like right there to learn how to build properly. Versus like, do they judge based off of either the robot or our expertise, I guess is what I'm asking.
I think it's more of, let me just grab this real quick. So proven experience is what we're looking at. It's not like we're like a lot of the judged awards that you see when you go to a general event where like you're looking at the robot, you're looking at the software, you're looking at the mechanical, right? What they're looking for is how, and I think a lot of times too, like that journey of like in your circumstance, right? Talking about didn't have a lot of resources, learned to code doing this, learned to do that, and now proficient in XYZ, right? So like highlighting that and how you got there, I think is really, really helpful. I definitely want to be clear that it's not the only piece, right? Like there's a well-roundedness of this award that's not just about the robot. It's also really about the person and their ability to lead. and their ability to, as mentioned, like what we're looking for, like future leaders and future ambassadors are first. So technical is important, but it's not the only thing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. It looks like we have my hand up. Hang on one sec. Rabadi, I'm going to unmute you in a second. Okay, almost got it. Okay, and then you just need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, so asking a quick question here. I was trying to simultaneously look for any deadline or dates for NorCal when we have to do this by, and where is the best place? Because I was not able to find a good place where I could find the dates.
So it's a great question, and here's the tricky part about that answer is that we need to get those dates from the local program delivery partner. So they give those to us, and that's going to drive your date. I can tell you that generally NorCal is around a January timeframe, just because I know that from history. But what we would need to have is for them to send us that, okay, this is the date that we're picking, right? So if they pick a date in February, then that would make your event date, your deadline January 15th. So it's kind of a rolling deadline. What we try to do on, at least on our side, on the first headquarter side, is that I will look and I track all those. And so we really try to make sure that we are seeing those as we come in and send targeted, like, all right, I know that NorCal is closing soon. I know that Wyoming is closing at the same time, and New Hampshire and XYZ. So we do our best to try to do targeted messages to those regions to make sure that we give you a heads up, because it is a little bit tricky when the events are kind of trickling in, especially right now where we're so early in the season. People are still kind of trying to figure out what their schedules are like. So I will say that we do that on the headquarters side to make sure that you are aware and you are informed. And I do know that a lot of regions, and I know NorCal is one of them, is very, very good at making sure that they are also telling their teams that the deadline is coming, but you should receive some sort of communication that it will be coming. So sorry, I know that's kind of a tricky, weird answer, but.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I would love to have one single deadline. So FRC has one deadline for all their teams, and that's it. And that's super easy. It's just with First Tech Challenge, we have such a long season, and we have so many different regions that that finish at different times. Like Hawaii is their state championship is done in December, so a January deadline wouldn't work for them. So it's trying to make sure that we accommodate all the different timelines in all of our different regions, but it does make it a little bit tricky for teams. So I do understand that. Nicole, go ahead.
So you did say something about who can nominate the different students, or who can nominate the students, and you said that there's going to be some changes to coming this season. When can we anticipate that those changes will be released?
Those should be next week, and really what it is. So we've always had this this Dean's List Award submitter role. So if someone other than the lead coach, because the lead coach 1 and 2, they get automatic ability to be able to enter the nomination into the system. And so I just really want to be clear that that's like going into the dashboard and physically being able to enter that, right? So a few years ago, we introduced this Dean's List Award submitter role because we understand that sometimes lead coach 1 and 2 can't do that. They can assign someone to be able to do that. The big difference that we're going to see this year, and again, this will be outlined in the guide, the big difference that we'll see is that we do want to make sure that that person is a part of the team. So they need to just have like a mentor role on the team, and then they will be able to be designated. And part of that is making sure that the person that is being designated is also has gone through the appropriate consent and release process, but also through our youth protection screening, because they are in essence accessing youth data information. So it really was a change for the better to make sure that, you know, youth data is that we're being really cautious and careful, and that is protected. So those are the reasons for the change. But again, it will be outlined. But if a lead coach or mentor wanted to, excuse me, if a lead coach 1 or 2 wanted to have a mentor submit, they would just need to designate that person and make sure that they're that they have a role on your team in the dashboard. Thought I just saw another question come in, but maybe I didn't. Oh, maybe I did. Hold on. So someone asked, if we were a rookie team last year that went to Worlds, is it all right for our examples to come from one season? Absolutely. You can only draw from what you've got, right? So definitely, if it's one season, that's one season. I gave, I think, I don't want to see an extreme example in the beginning where, you know, we do see a lot of students now that have come from first LEGO League. I think, sorry, I said junior. I think it's Explorer now, all the way up to First Tech Challenge and First Robotics Competition. But, you know, by all means, if you have a year under your belt, then that's what you're going to be focusing on. Oh man, you had to ask me this question and put me on the spot. Okay, so trying to think. So someone asks, what are some examples of non-FTC additional info that can be added to bolster our essay for the candidate, like for leadership or STEM involvement or other areas? So one of our judges, one of our Dean's Committee World Championship judges normally joins me on this call, but she always brings up this really cool example of a student who was involved in like building steam engines and got to talk a lot about steam engines. Or I had another student who, I'm trying to remember because it's been a really long time, but was building boats that would like with a whole bunch of other students with all of like the STEM skills and math that they learned, these boats that they would have to sail across this like massive body of water, you know, stuff like that. That's just really like how you're taking your skills that you're learning in these programs and applying it in really other cool and really, you know, interesting ways. It could even be, you know, internships that you've gotten or companies that you have been able to approach and sponsor because XYZ. There's so many different ways. It's hard to pinpoint one, right? And that's why there's a reason that we don't put a template out there, because what we want is we do want to see some of that uniqueness of each student. So we really don't want any type of like a cookie cutter, like this is a winning essay. We don't want that, because what happens is that we get a lot of the same, you know. Focus on the uniqueness of you. And that being said, I just reminded myself of something when we were talking about preparing for the interview. This is super, super important to understand, is that this is the only award in FTC, and I think probably FRC too, for students that is an individual award. So this isn't about the team. This is about whoever it is being written about. So I think sometimes that gets lost, especially where everyone is so used to these team awards. But it's really important to focus on what are your individual contributions to the team, right? What are you most proud of? And really owning that and really speaking to that is super, super important. Let's see. Nicole, go ahead.
Sorry, I have more questions.
No, don't be sorry.
Is it possible for an interviewer from that interviews for the teams for like those specific awards to be the same for the Dean's List?
So like, is it possible for like a judge from an event to be an interviewer as well? Is that?
Yes.
It is. It absolutely is possible. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Jordan, I am unmuting you. in a second. Okay, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello?
Hi.
Okay. Hi. This is regarding what you said about accomplishments. Are accomplishments and moments, does it have to be unique to FTC and the FTC seasons?
I think that it is important to focus on those for sure. Um, I do think that if there are additional accomplishments, then you should feel free to share those. One thing we do have, hold on, let me find it. We did add a small section here where like when the essay is being submitted, like are there any other performance or extracurricular activities that you would want us to know about, et cetera. So I think I'd almost I don't want to put a number on it, but I do think that showing some of the other things that you do outside of first is definitely a good thing, right? Like I never want to say only talk about things that you do in first, because I do think that the other things that you do are important and show well-roundedness, right? That said, it wouldn't be my total main focus, but I do think that the things that you're proud of and the things that you've accomplished outside of first, you should absolutely mention. There's a place for it here, and then there's also a place for it within your interview.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and when we're talking about that, keep in mind that criteria too. So if there's something that you're doing outside of first that still falls in line with that criteria, like I think that would definitely be something that you should highlight, right? Like kind of keeping this in your mind when you're bringing those things into the interview. What else do we got for questions? Sorry, I'm very sloppily sharing this, but it's just easier to flip back and forth. We have until 9:55, so please, by all means, if you have any more questions, go ahead and ask. Go ahead, Nicole.
Hello again. How confidential are the interviews? Like, would we be able to talk with our teammates afterwards, or talk to previously the people who've won in the past, like what their interview process was like? Is that allowed, and like how much can we say about it?
That's completely okay to talk about. I think that's totally fine to talk about amongst yourselves, amongst others who have experienced it. I think that's a great thing to talk about, right? I will say from a confidentiality perspective, the only piece that is confidential is the ones like the notes that are submitted that go to the committee. Like those stay confidential within first once they are submitted to us, because those get submitted directly to HQ. Those don't go anywhere else. And they only get sent to the finalist judges if you were considered, if you were selected as a finalist. So I just want to be clear on that. But as far as having conversations with other people that have been through the process, I would encourage it, actually.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I really enjoy when you ask questions because it gets really awkward and I'm bad at awkward chicken. I'll definitely be the one to talk first. So this is great. Thank you. So amnesia, hang on. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. I just unmuted you. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, it's Avanija Kumaraju. I know one of the trickiest names, possible last names, but thank you for. I wanted to thank you for the session today,
Okay.
and also some great questions. Nicole, they were really great questions. I think they were running in many of our minds, but we couldn't ask them out loud.
Mhm.
Thank you for asking them out loud too. This was a really helpful session, and I want to add something, Erin, if it's okay to the session. Uh, I have two boys. One is a Dean's List finalist in one of the years. I don't want to say the year. From the Northern California region for FTC. Uh, and to answer the question for the FTC, Northern California, I think if one of the attendee asked, they do a very good job by sending out, as you said, emails. And you can always find more information on the local partner website. They also put the date out on that website as well, and they do a pretty decent job of updating it. So norcalftc.org, if you want that handy.
Mhm. And we
That's
do
the
have.
website, and in that, under the events, you can see they have all their qualifiers judged, and they also have when the FTC judging. It is a Dean's List interview only event for Northern California, so it's online over a weekend, definitely, as you mentioned. And I would say keep it every 50. I think one other point is that's already there, but mentors and coaches miss is that when you submit your application, you can submit your answers anytime. On the 15th of every month, it automatically submits the application. So once you submit, you can always go back and edit those before the 15th of every month.
Yeah, so that depends on the region. So generally, each region only has one deadline. So it could be November, it could be December, it could be January. So just being cognizant of that. But what I did want to show on the screen really quickly is that if you don't know who to contact in your region, if you go to our website, thefirstinspires.org, and you click on Find Local Support, here's where you can US, let's just say Alaska, right? And so for First Tech Challenge, these are your contacts for Alaska. And so you can select California. And again, there's California, there's Los Angeles, there's Northern California, and San Diego. But this is a great way to find who you need if you do have questions. But yeah, and someone did ask, we have 1 minute left, but what will the subsequent Dean's List calls be like? Will it be a similar Q&A format? And the answer is yes. This is really just about teams and coaches and parents being able to call and ask any questions that they have. So it's a similar format. If there's any news, we'll definitely share that out when we start the call. But we definitely just like to be able to try and open it up to, what questions are out there. As I said, there's no such thing as a stupid question here. I know that there are probably some newer teams that are calling in, right? So we have a lot of rookie teams coming in this year. And some teams that are now having students that are getting into 10th and 11th grade. And there may not be new teams, but it's new to them. So we do like to keep this Q&A format, but at the top of the hour, just make sure that we cover any questions or any topics that might have come up since the last one. But we are at 9:55. So again, I want to thank you all great questions tonight. And thank you for keeping the discussion active and lively. It's great. The next call is scheduled for Wednesday, November 13th. I will just really quickly throw this link into, oh, I can't put it in our chat. Anyway, I'm going to run over for 1 minute. That's okay. If we go to game and season, under our team management resources, mentor training and resources. So the team training webinar schedule is there. So this is all of the team trainings that we do. So next Dean's List, Wednesday, November 13th, you can register here. We also have team gameplay calls. So if you're attending there, I'll see you tomorrow night. But yeah, so again, thank you all for your participation tonight. I'm a little bit over and hope to see you back. And I hope you have a fantastic season and good luck. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you for answering all my questions.
Oh, no, it was great. Thank you for asking them. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone.